Bombshell news. The Central Bank of Iran is announcing that they will be dumping the US dollar in all foreign exchange. If they proceed with this act, it will hit a major blow to the US as yet another country engaging in trade without the reserve currency. They wouldn't be the first country to suggest using a different currency other than the US dollar. Iraq and Libya also had this idea, though their fate seemed to quickly take a turn for the worse immediately afterward. Coincidence? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into this news today about Iran suggesting they will dump the US dollar. Let's get right into it. Iran to dump the US dollar in response to Trump's travel ban. I do believe that this isn't exactly true, but the announcement comes right after. They have already been sort of trying to wean themselves off of the US dollar more so than a country like China, which is definitely more heavily invested in the US. But we have seen Iran over the last few years anyway start to do trade with other countries not using the US dollar, but things are still priced in that. So it's important to note that when you decide to go away from the reserve currency, obviously reserve currency is being very important, then you decide to basically hit a big blow on that country. Tehran plans to ditch the use of the American currency in financial reporting after the US President Donald Trump issued a travel ban on 7 countries, including Iran. According to Press TV, the Central Bank of Iran is seeking to replace the dollar with a new common foreign currency or use a basket of currencies in all official financial and foreign exchange reports. So they are suggesting using perhaps, as they've, there's been talk anyway, maybe we're going to use the euro, or maybe it's going to be a basket of currencies. And you could have, obviously, the euro being part of that basket. And they're just suggesting going their own way. They don't want to deal with the US dollar. And at some point, they need to pull the trigger. This will take effect March 21st. That's the new year over there. So they're suggesting going ahead as planned on that day. We'll see if it actually happens, but it is very, very important. After Trump's election, the Iranian rial saw record lows against the US dollar. On December 27th, it plunged to its all-time low of 41,000 to the dollar. All right, important to note here. The head of the central bank said the U.S. did not have a significant role in Iranian trade and could be replaced with currencies of Iran's key partners like the European Union, China, and the United Arab Emirates. They've already, at the bottom it says here, they've already have agreements with Russia, Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Iraq to use national currencies in the local trade. As I've said, they've already made many steps towards doing themselves away with the US dollar. It's important to note this because when you see countries exchanging into the reserve currency, that currency automatically becomes strong. It keeps that stronghold it has. And this has been going on obviously for decades and decades. The petrodollar is obviously very, very important. And whenever a country suggests going another route, it is number one, ridiculed. It is, pushed aside. But if it actually goes ahead and does it, begins making those proceedings to do so, to fully get away, then it's in big trouble. This happened, as I've said, twice before. Look at this. Iraq nets handsome profits by dumping the dollar for the euro. Now this right here is the money GPS investigations that you don't get other places. You hear a lot of talk, you hear a lot of opinion, but here it is, very simply, the historical analysis. This was February 2003. A bizarre political statement by Saddam Hussein, who, by the way, spoke fluent English, just thought I would let you know, has earned Iraq a windfall of hundreds of millions of euros. In October 2000, Iraq insisted on dumping the US dollar, the currency of the enemy, for the more multilateral euro. And it basically goes on to say how they've done well since dumping it. Okay, fine. A 30% increase in the euro, by the way, that they got in a short period of time. A few years. 30% increase, that is very significant. All right, remember that date. The 15th of February, 2003. What else happened in 2003? Well, I can't help but remember this day. March 19th, 2003. The war in Iraq begins. 1 month later, that they've posted their profits saying we are doing so well since dumping this euro. And what do they get out of it? An invasion. And Saddam Hussein was overthrown. The country completely obliterated, even worse than what it was prior. Even though just prior to this invasion, I mean, it wasn't long before that when the US and Iraq were partners, doing deals together, working together against Iran. Then we move into this. Out of all those Hillary Clinton emails, one thing was found to be interesting. This is part of that. I'm not going to get into the whole thing. Subject line, France's client and Gaddafi's gold. Interesting. What's this all about? Well, down at the bottom, the gold that they're referring to here was accumulated prior to the current rebellion, and it was intended to be used, check this out, to establish a pan-African currency based on the Libyan golden dinar. Imagine that. A gold-backed currency to do away with the US dollar. It would have support from other countries in Africa, and it was meant to basically build Africa up and actually have some strength, get some investment, get some stability. That's what they needed. And there he was, making strong headwinds, trying to build up Libya, trying to build up Africa, trying to create all sorts of alliances globally. And he wants to do so without the US dollar. He's overthrown the country, complete bedlam. That's number 2. Look at this. Now, not a complete doing away with the US dollar, but look at this list. Considerable amount of countries who will have gone and done away with, in limited terms I should say, done away with the US dollar in order to have these currency swap agreements between these different countries all over the world. I mean, it's just geographically completely mixed around South Korea, Hong Kong, you get Turkey, Australia, Canada, and other countries. Okay? Every country seems to be doing this. One of the things that I said early on about these currency swaps is that they would be, redone at some point, reinstated and reestablished, and it would continue. They would have a limited agreement. Okay, over the next year, we will do a currency swap of $100 billion. Okay, so that year, and then by the end of that year, they create a new agreement. I said that would happen, and it's very clear. It doesn't take a crystal ball or anything to figure that out. They want these things to continue. It is a slow erosion of the US dollar. Yes, you see the US dollar's value going up, but what? Against what? Against other currencies. They're not being rated against its actual value against real goods. We've seen it against real goods been declining year over year over year. That's what I have to say about that. Over time, you can see that countries are trying to figure out their way while still supporting the US dollar on one hand. On the other hand, they're basically going out and trying to go shopping for something else. You can see that. It's not just China doing that. And just last but not least, this basically the untold story behind Saudi Arabia's 41-year US debt secret. How a legendary bond trader from Salomon Brothers brokered a do-or-die deal that reshaped US-Saudi relations for generations. Out of Bloomberg article here. I read all about this before in a few of my books that I've read, talking about the petrodollar. Okay, it's important to note, you need to understand that as long as Saudi Arabia continues to do trade, sell their oil in US dollars, the US military will protect Saudi Arabia. Okay, it's a partnership. It's been going on for decades. There might be some problems here and there between the relations between the two, but it's sound. There's stability here. This needs to continue on. If it doesn't continue on, the US dollar is dead. Plain and simple. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. So, I've taken this complicated subject of finance, made it very simple, and I've done so using diagrams that I've drawn up, as well as charts, and you can check it out at Amazon because they have a look inside feature that will allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Take care. Now, if you're still hanging in there, I want to show you this. This is the new book. I have in my hands a copy of the new book, a proof copy. I'm just going to quickly review it, and it will be able to go up on Amazon very soon. I assure you it's very, very soon. The copy is here. This is the cover of the book. I want to know your thoughts on it, of course, and look for this very soon. I will obviously be doing a video about it. Take care. Let's get right into it. Iran to dump the US dollar in response to Trump's travel ban. I do believe that this isn't exactly true, but the announcement comes right after. They have already been sort of trying to wean themselves off of the US dollar more so than a country like China, which is definitely more heavily invested in the US. But we have seen Iran over the last few years, different currency other than the US dollar. Iraq and Libya also had this idea, though their fate seemed to quickly take a turn for the worse immediately afterward. Coincidence? You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into this news today about Iran suggesting they will dump the US dollars anyway, start to do trade with other countries, not using the US dollar, but things are still priced in that. So it's important to note that when you decide to go away from the reserve currency, obviously reserve currency is being very important, then you decide to basically hit a big blow on that country. Tehran plans to ditch the use of bombshell news. The Central Bank of Iran is announcing that they will be dumping the US dollar in all foreign exchange. If they proceed with this act, it will hit a major blow to the US as yet another country engaging in trade without the reserve currency. They wouldn't be the first country to suggest using the American currency in financial reporting after the US President Donald Trump issued a travel ban on 7 countries, including Iran. According to Press TV, the Central Bank of Iran is seeking to replace the dollar with a new common foreign currency or use a basket of currencies in all official financial and foreign exchange reports.